This video is to show you how to finish your Zentangle ornament. So once you've got all of your pieces glued together, so they've been folded, you've glued them together, I'm going to add this one on there so you can see how that's done. You just need to put a little bit of glue right here. And then line this one up, stick it on there. It's easier to do when they're all flat. If it doesn't line up, just scoot it around until it does. There we go. So I've checked that the edges are all lined up right there. Great. Now you don't want to glue this last one together. Otherwise, sometimes it's a little tricky to put the string through the middle. If you forgot and you did glue it together, you just have to hopefully there's a little bit of a hole through the middle that you can feed your string through. But the way I prefer to do it is to leave it unglued for now. I'm using fishing line for my string. Nice thing about this is that it's easy to put beads on because it's little thin plastic thread. The tricky thing is it's a little bit hard to tie because it's so slippery that a lot of knots will just slide right out of the string. So I'm going to show you how to do it to make the knots stay. I've got a few beads to add on to make my ornament even more fancy. So what I'm going to start with is I have about a 2-foot length of fishing line. You could also use regular thread or string if that's all you have. That'll work just fine and be easier to tie, but it won't be clear. I'm going to fold it in half so my ends line up. If you don't have something to measure 2 feet, the length of your arm is about 2 feet. So that's a pretty good way to measure that. However long you want the loop at the top to be, you're going to get that. And then this is how to tie a knot in this kind of thread. So if you wrap it around your finger, both of the threads all together, and then you reach through that loop and you pull both ends of the thread through there. So you're basically making one knot with both of those threads at the same time. Then when you pull on that, it will tighten up and work just fine. So I'm going to sort of scoot it up to where I want that, however long I want that loop to be. If you want a shorter loop, you can make it shorter. And as I get to where it's tightening up, I can pull those two threads apart from each other and that'll help tighten it. All right, so I've got my loop for the top of my ornament. Then I'm going to take my first bead that I want at the very top, and I'm going to use this purple one right here. And I'm only going to put it through one thread. That is going to help to have it not slide off the top. If I put it through both threads, then it will just slide right off the top of that loop because there is nothing stopping it. But if I just put it through one thread, then it will stop where I have that knot. I am going to, just for good measure, tie another knot underneath that one just to make sure it's really in the right place. So I'm pulling those two ends through, and then I have to kind of scoot it up so that it's right next to that bead. And then kind of pull those two threads apart. That will tighten it up so it's right there. Okay, then if I want any other beads at the top, I'll put those on through both threads. I'm going to put this little silver one through both threads. I'm also going to put this little one. I recommend at least one bead on the top of your ornament and one bead on the bottom. If you want to do more than that, it'll just make it extra fancy. Okay, so once I've got my top beads, then I'm going to put it through my center of my ornament. Okay. At this point, you can glue these together, and that'll make beading the bottom of it a little easier, but you just want to be careful that this doesn't slide out of there, so don't like hold it upside down and have this fall out, because otherwise you'll have to scoot these little threads through the middle, and that can be a little tricky sometimes. So you can either wait and do the bottom beads first, but it's a little harder to get the center part to be the right length. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put a little glue and stick those together and just be careful not to have those beads fall off of there or the string to slide out from the center. Okay, got that. So now I want to put my bottom beads. If you're just going to do one bead on the bottom, just put it through one of the threads. If you're going to do more than one bead, you can put the first one through both threads and then just however many you're going to put on there. And then the last one, put it only through one thread. So this is going to be my first one. I'm going to put this one through both threads. And then this last one, I'm only going to put that through one thread. That way I can tie it underneath and it will stay on there. Nope, I missed my thread. Let's try that again. There we go. Got it this time. Okay, so this bead is through both threads. This one is only through one thread. And then I'm going to carefully tie that bottom knot right there. If you just pull on it, it'll end up kind of far down and then your beads will hang down with a bit of space. So if you like that, you can do that. I like mine to be right up next to it, so I usually try and kind of scoot that knot up before I pull it tight. And then as it's getting close to being tight, if you take your two threads and you pull them apart, that will cinch up your knot and tighten it up right there. If you're doing this with regular thread rather than the fishing line, a lot of this stuff is not as necessary because that thread will hold a knot much nicer than this plastic thread. Okay, and then I've got that. That's all done. I recommend putting a little dot of hot glue here to keep this knot from coming undone. Or you can just tie a few knots and leave a little bit of space with the string. But if you want to be able to cut your string really short, I recommend putting some hot glue. And I sometimes also put this thread back up through my last needle so I don't have little ends sticking out. Or the thread through the last bead there. Yeah. So that they go up like that. I put a little dot of hot glue on here to hold it. And then I can trim off the end of these threads real close there. And then you've got your lovely ornament with all of your Zentangle patterns. And if it's not spreading out evenly, you can just kind of play with these until it does. Until you get a nice little globe there. Fun. All right, enjoy.